Hello there and welcome to another video from Change Tips and Tools, and this is video number 3 in our PowerApps series, how-to series. And this video we are going to go back into SharePoint and create our cross-reference list, and we're going to utilize the lookup function. I'm going to show you how that works, and then we're going to pop back into PowerApps where we'll create our cross-reference screen where we will utilize the drop-down control. So without further ado, let's do this. So now that we've created all those, we've got our categories, we've got our programs and projects. The next thing I'm going to show you is how we create drop-downs that feed off these 3 lists in SharePoint. So I'm going to go back to SharePoint, because now I need to be able to create, because if you remember rightly, in the resource planning template, and let me get that up. So in the static data, so we've created this, and we've created this. And the beauty is, with obviously our SharePoint list, there's no limit here. We can create as many as we want. It doesn't matter. But now we need to create this cross-reference table. Yeah, where we can then create a relationship between the program, the project, and the category. And the way that we're going to set this up is a dependent drop-down. And what I mean by that is this data validation that we created in Excel. I'm going to show you how we do that in SharePoint. Let's get back to SharePoint and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go home. I'm going to do a new list, blank again, and I'm going to call this cross reference. Yeah. And again, I want it to show on the navigation bar, and I'm going to click create. Now this title, I'm going to leave it alone. We don't actually, we have to have it in SharePoint. We can't get rid of it and delete it, but I want 3 lookup columns. So I'm going to add a column. I'm just going to scroll down. I'm going to choose lookup. There we go. So I'll choose that and do next. So I'm going to call this program. My lookup is going to be against the programs list. I'm going to pull through that title, and I'm going to hit save. I'm then going to do the same for projects. So I'm going to do lookup. I'm going to do next. I'm going to call this project. Yeah. And it's already got projects there and title. So I'm going to do save. And then finally, I'm going to do category. So again, this is a lookup. Do next. I'm going to call this category. Yeah. And my lookup is going to be against the categories list. And I'm going to pull through the title. And I'm going to click save. Now, I'm going to go into list settings. So I'm going to choose the cog up here on the right. I'm going to do list settings. So there's a couple of things I want to do here. So against the program here, and it's easy to show you in this screen, is it doesn't need to be unique, but I want to enforce a relationship and enforce so in other words, we can't delete stuff. It'll create an error if we try and delete it. If we don't, first of all, if we try and delete something in the program list that sits within this table, this list here, it'll stop us, and that's what we want it to do. So I'm going to enable and enforce that relationship as well. Okay, so I'm not going to cascade the delete, because the cascade deletes, if I delete it in here, it'll delete in all of the tables. I don't want to do that. I want to prevent people from deleting in here. If it, I want to prevent people deleting in the program list if it exists in this table, or list, should I say. So I'll click OK. And it says it's going to enforce indexing because of the relationship behavior. I'm going to click OK. On the project can only exist in here once. We can only create one relationship with one program. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to make it unique, enforce that unique values again. And again, I'm going to enforce the relationship behavior here as well at the bottom. So in other words, it'll stop anything being deleted in the projects list if it exists in here. And click OK. Do OK again. And then finally, I'm going to click the category column. And again, it doesn't need to be unique, but I want to enforce the relationship like so. And I'm going to click OK. Boom. There we have it. Now, if I go into the cross-reference table, if I do a new record, or add a new item, sorry. So I'm going to leave the title blank because we're not using it. But then there you'll see now in the drop down now, you can see all the programs that we created. So if I select program A, do the project, I'm going to do project 1, and then the category, I'm going to make it regulatory, and I'm going to click save. And there you go. And that's how I've created a list where the drop downs use other lists. And what that means is as we add new things in here, the drop down options or choices will grow dynamically. Brilliant. Okay, now I've created the SharePoint list for the cross-reference. I now need to create the drop-down tables, etc., for the cross-reference. So first of all, let's create, now that we've created that cross-reference table in SharePoint, we need to create a data link to it. So I'm going to go to my data, add new data, and again, just select SharePoint. There's my login. Change tips and tools training, and I want that cross-reference table that we've just created. I'm going to select that and connect. So I've now got it as a cross-reference. Let's go to my apps, my tree view, go to the app, and let's go to on start. And again, let's just do our variables for our cross-reference. So let's take this. All I'm going to do is copy it, like I've done before. So let me just do that. And there you go, like before, I've done it. And what I've used, I've not done the full cross-reference because that's a bit of a mouthful. So I'm just going to put xfer. So var xfer for cross-reference, X, uppercase X, F-E-R in there. So I've now created that. Let me just run on start to populate those variables. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, let me shrink that down. Let's go to the screen programs, and I'm going to duplicate this. So I'm going to right click on it and click duplicate screen. Boom. And let's just move this down below projects like so, and let's rename it, and I'm going to replace programs with xfer. So let me just do that. Come to think of it, this here is going to be a different type of search. So I'm going to take that and I am going to delete it. Let's go back again. I didn't want it to do all that though, didn't I? So let's just take that there and I'm going to delete. There you go. Not quite sure why it did that. And then as far as the, let's go through and rename these. So program going to be xfer. This one. Let me just go through and rename all the buttons, and fields, etc., like I've done before. Okay, I've gone through and renamed everything. Now you'll notice I've not renamed this here. So that there, I'm just going to get rid of it because I don't need it, because we're going to use a different type of control there. So I'm just going to delete that. Good. So I've now gone through and renamed everything. So let's just move these the order here as well. Because remember, I want the tab order to work correctly. And again, I'm just going to move that to the top. New, let's move that below that. Good. Right, so everything's done. So now I need to change the button. So on the on select, because this is going to be different. So let's make this cross-reference. There you go. You'll notice I've got these single quotation marks here. That's because there's a space in there. That's why it's doing that. Instead of, if I just get rid of this, I want this to be exfer data. Okay. Good. And then if I just click off it, click on it, just check that variable collections, and there's my exfer data, view table, and there we go. We've got that one record that we've added. Excellent. That's all picking up fine. Shrink that back down. To go back to our tree view, now as far as new, I'm not going to do anything there because we need to add some columns in here. So let's change the gallery, and I'm just going to change this to be col exfer data. Yeah, just keep it simple. At the moment, we'll do something with that in a minute, just so we've got that coming through as a source. And again, let's go to display mode. I'm going to change this to exfer. Yeah, so that works. And again, just on the visible, all these. But I'll do that. I'll change those when I'm amending the code. So let's just not do that for a second. So what I need to do now, if I shrink that down, is what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the save. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this wider, because it's going to be wider. We're going to have 3 columns in here, so I'm going to make that. So I've selected main, external, added a hash mark there, so I'm going to get rid of that. I don't want that. It's better. Let's select the container exfer data, and let's make that wider. And then the gallery exfer, let's make that wider as well to accommodate our 3 columns. So the first one, you'll notice I've added an exfer to the prog there, which is fine. Let's take the save button, let's just drag that all the way over to the right here, out the way, and the delete button should follow off that based on what we've done before. So that's fine. So we need to add some new controls here. So we're not going to use the text input, we're going to use the new modern drop-down control. So firstly, let's add some titles here, shall we? So we've got the text program header, exfer program header. So I'm going to select that, do copy, and I'm going to do Control V and Control V. That one I'm going to move to the right, and you'll notice the header container is not wide enough, so let me just extend that. So there we've got that one. So that one is going to be, let's rename it to be for the category. So I'm going to replace the prog there with cat. Wonderful. And let's change that text. Let's do it up here. See in the text property. So let's make that category. I'm going to leave the asterisk there because it's mandatory. Good. And then let's take this one. Let's move it. Let's move that over to the right a little bit. Let's take this one and let's make that sort of prog. Change that G to a J for the project header and hit return. And then let's change that text there to be project. Boom. Then all I'm going to do is I'm going to change the order of this because I'm a bit OCD about that. So we've got program, project, and cat. So I want this one to position itself after this automatically. So again, that same expanding functionality we've done before. So, so I'm going to take this one here. I'm going to take the X property and let's place that with text X for prog header dot of the X property plus text X for prog dot width, yeah, plus 1 padding, yeah. Okay, that's working. And then let's take the category, and that needs to be dependent on this one, so when it moves. So again, I'm going to, on the category piece, I'm going to go to the X property. Let's get rid of that. And let's do text X for project header this time, dot X property plus text X for proj header width, and then again plus 1 for padding. So these now all work off each other. Wonderful. Okay, so that's what we wanted. So now we need to add our drop downs. So remember on the SharePoint site, these, if I do new, these have all got drop downs. So we want to mimic that and make that a little bit better. So I'm just going to cancel that. So let's go back to our SharePoint list and again select the gallery, do the edit, and I'm going to insert input. I'm going to use the drop down control here. And there we go. So let's make that a little bit higher. Yeah, I'm going to make the width on this match the program. So let's just do the drop down, do width. Let's make that match text. Oh, make sure I'm in the text X for prog header dot width. I want it to match that so it moves when we change that in the design. That's fine. As far as this is concerned, I'm going to make the font size. So let's rename this to be let's rename it to be DRP for drop down, X for prog, short for program, and hit return. And what I'm going to do is over here on the font size, I'm just going to make that 25. Just enter that. So with this done, I've then got, so I've got nothing, no data source. I've not got it connected to anything yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this now that I've created it, yeah, I'm just going to do copy. I'm then going to do Control V, and I'm going to do Control V. And do Control V again. So I've done 3 of them. So let's move that over there. And let's move this one over as well. So there's the one that I've just got selected. There's highlighted here. So let's change the name of that to be the project. Yeah, and hit enter. And let's take care of the X property of this. So I want it to run off the program one. So I'm going to do DRP program dot X plus the width, and then +1 padding like the header. And as far as the width is concerned, I'm going to run it off the header here. So let's change that to project, and that's now fine. So if I just go to the X there, just make sure that's running. We got X plus DRP and then width. And obviously something is, there you go, look. Instead of plus, I did an equal sign, so +1. Boom, there you go. Pay attention to what you're typing. Okay, that looks fine now. Now let's take this one. So let's rename this to be the category. So CAT for that control. And let's run that one. So the width is going to be the category header. So what I've got to do is replace that. And then the X property, I want it to run off this control as its reference. So I'm going to do DRP project dot X plus, make sure I'm hitting the right key there, DRP proj dot width +1. And there you go. So these are all now running, and it keeps on asking for a source here because I've not put anything in there as far as the source. So let's now sort out the data. So I'm just going to hit save here, because the one thing I want to do now is I'm going to take this save button, and now I'm going to point the X property to the last DRP there. So if I do DRP category dot and then the X property plus DRP cat dot width +5 this time for the padding. Right, so now I've done that, that's all running off this. So let's take a look at the program and let's get the data pulling through and also the drop downs and the way that we do that. So let's take this first one here. So as far as the items, this is where we need to refer to the choices in our SharePoint list. So I'm going to type choices, which is the choices function, and I'm going to do the cross reference list dot program. Yeah, and I'm going to close the bracket. And as you can see now, it's pulling it through. Wonderful. So there we've got it. So it's pulling through the program. Then as far as the default items selected, this item dot program. There you go. And there you go. It's come through. Bosh. So that works. Now let's do the same thing for the project. So again, on this one, let's go to items. Let's get rid of what's the default that's in there. It's called choices. Again, cross-reference list dot project. Just check that drop down, and there they are. The projects are pulling through. Wonderful. And then as far as the default item, default selected item is going to be this item dot project. Perfect. So you can hear it. My dog's barking outside. Apologies for that. Reggie, his name is a cockapoo, and he's obviously making sure everybody knows he's around. Anyway, let me carry on. So, and then the category finally. Let's look at the items. Again, this is going to be choices. So let's do choices, and it's going to be cross-reference. Not category. Close the bracket on that. Again, just do the drop down, and there they are, all pulling through. Wonderful. And you'll notice you've got an ID and a value. Remember that, an ID and a value. And then as far as the default selected items on this, because it is a modern control, so it works slightly different to the classic, as it were, is going to be this item dot category. And there you go. You'll notice you've got this because we need to sort out the save and stuff like that. Right, so let me just change this header as well while looking at it. It's staring at me, and I'm going to change that there, that text property, to cross reference. And let's just make it a little bit bigger so it all fits. Perfect. Right, so now we've got stuff pulling through, and if I just do that and play, at the moment you can see it's not allowing us to change anything, which is fine, because we now need to set these variables and set these up appropriately. So let's look at our gallery, and let's look at the display mode. It's got the X first, so we set that. Let's look at the save button. Let's look at the visible icon on that, and let's change that from the prog where we copied it to Xfer. Yeah. Then let's do the on select. Let's look at that. What have we got to change? Right. So on save, we need to make sure that the project is unique. Yeah. So we need to do some things here. So this is going to be Xfer. Yeah. As far as this is concerned, let's just, it'll help us, prompt is going to be program. No, project, in fact. So you want project equals dr equals, so you want equals the drp project dot selected dot value. Just choose that. And this, you know, so I'll get a little, it's indicating there's a problem there. So I need to do project dot value. Yeah. There we go. So that's working. Now the check is going to be against. So we're going to patch it. This item, and obviously this is all wrong. So we just need to change this. So let's just get rid of this. And then we need to do program equals drp prog dot selected, comma, and then project It's going to be drp proj dot selected, comma, and then we're going to do category. It's going to be drp cat dot selected. Okay, and let's just do format text on that to make sure it all, so that all looks good. Okay, and then we just need to change this duplicate projects not allowed, because we can only have one project reference once in this cross-reference table. There we go. Okay, so we've now done the save. So let's look at the delete, and let's do the visible first. Just make sure we've done it. So the visible property is going to be xfer again. Yeah, and then as far as the onSelect is concerned, let's expand that. So we're going to change this delete collection to xfer, delete col xfer delete, and then we are simply just going to do the xfer data and remove it. So we've literally duplicated everything. The only thing we've done different here is we've replaced these here, these drop downs, and taken out the text control that we've been using up to now. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Now let's look at the new piece here, and if we go back to apps, there's one thing I didn't do when copying. You'll notice I'm pulling through the defaults for the projects. That's not what I want. I want the default for the cross-reference here. Just thinking about that. That's fine. So I've put that in there, that cross-reference, yeah, just to make sure. And let me just rerun. Run start. Done, just to make sure that's loaded now. And then on the new button here for our xfer, let's look at the visible property. Let's change that. So again, move that to xfer. Just reusing what I figured out in the first on the first screen that we created. And then the onSelect. Let's change this to be the xfer temp ID. And then change the collection to refer to the xfer. And the patch needs to be the xfer again. And the prog temp is now xfer. Just a prog. Boom. And there's the new record. And then finally, let's take the new. Again, I'm just going to do the visible first. Change that to be xfer. And then do the onSelect and amend that. So again, button I don't need to change, I just need to change the var edit. So I'm going to do xfer and change that out there as well for xfer. Wonderful. Right, that looks good to me. So the only thing that we've got left to do now is we need to change the onSelect information on the edit on this button, this dynamic button here. So we're going to hit save again. So let's expand that out. So let's go through this step by step. So this needs to be swapped out for xfer. As far as the is blank. So this now, I need to change this to make sure that none of the, i.e. the program, the project, or the category is blank. So the way that we're going to do that is let's just change this to be Xfer. And then let's just get rid of this bit and rewrite what we want now. So now we want program dot value equals blank. Yeah. And again, do the 2 point marks for the or and do program dot value equals, yeah. And then I'm going to do or again, and let's do the project dot value equals blank. Or the project dot value equals empty quotation marks, double quotation marks there. And then finally, let's do the category. So category dot value equals blank. Or category dot value equals just empty quotation marks. Right. Okay. So, and that'll then give us a sign, please complete. And then we're going to patch, not programs, but our cross-reference list. And we're going to add that, take care of that ID. There's no conflict. Yeah. We're then going to remove any deleted items, cross-reference from using our Xfer collection, Xfer delete collection. And then we've got a sign saying changes are successful. And again, just going to put that error there, reference the project, needs to be unique. Then as far as I'm going to clear my delete collection, so that's Xfer delete collection, that's automatically changed. And I'm going to change this variable just to switch the state of that variable. And just format text, that all seems fine. So let's give it a test, shall we? So again, I'm just going to run on start just to reset everything, make sure everything's there. I'm going to hit save, and then I'm going to press play here to go into, let's test it. So if I do exit edit mode, wonderful, so everything I can see now is there. So let's do a new record. Let's do project A. Let's just test project 1. Let's try saving that. It's giving me an error there. That's what I want it to do. So let's change this to 2. Save it. That seems fine. Let's do exit edit mode. Let's go to SharePoint. Let's refresh that. Wonderful. So that's working. It's adding them. Now, what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to filter on these, yeah. So, but it's going to be slightly different. I'm going to use the a drop-down control to select the choices and then filter on this, yeah. So let's do that. Right, so let's come out of that and let's try adding a filter. So I'm going to move this icon over to here for now. And with the screen X first selected, I'm going to insert another drop down. I think I'm going to add a combo box because I want to be able to do multiple. No, let's just leave it with this. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. So let's just put this here. I'm going to say width on this one. So I'm going to call this DRP Xfer prog search. So I'm going to call it. I'm then going to take this, and as far as the width, I want the width to be the same as the header. So let's do text Xfer program header dot width. Let's do that. Okay. So I just want this to, let's just undo that. I want to be able to take that. There we go. So that all moves nicely. Okay. Now with this, I want to be able to, well, if we do, and we want to do a filter on this. So if I do selected items, or do items, sorry, and I do choices, because we want the choices from the cross-reference dot program. Yeah. If I do that, so we've got the choices there, right? And I want to do a filter based on what I select here on the gallery. But also we're going to do one for projects and categories. So let's just handle this first one here. So if I go to gallery and go to items, instead of using a search, because it's going to be a whole thing, I'm going to do filter. So I'm going to, in fact, let's do filter tab. It gets rid of the, so let's retype in that call. Xfer data, right? So that's what I'm filtering. The logical test is where program dot value equals DRP prog search dot selected dot value. Yeah. So then if I just close the bracket on that, let's see what happens now. Yeah. So at the moment that's fine. So let's do play, and it's blank. If I do A, it's then fine. Right. Plus I can't select a blank row. Yeah. So that doesn't work as well as we wanted it, does it? So if I just close that down. So let's first of all, let's sort out the fact that we want, so let's, what I'm going to do is first of all, it's going to insert a temporary button. Let's just put it there. I'm just going to put reset here. Yeah. And on the on select, I'm going to do, use the reset because I want to reset the DRP prog search there, yeah. So again, if I just press play, save that and press play, if I reset it, so that doesn't work with a blank. So let's make a change to this filter property to allow for a blank there. So let's just close that down. Let's go back to the gallery. Let's expand that. So what we want to do is say, do an or statement there, or is blank drp search dot selected dot value, and close the bracket on that, is blank. Let's do format text just to organize it for me. Okay, let's see if that works. I'm going to save and let's do play. Let's do so it's, if I do reset, it's showing everything. So that works now. And if I do program A, that's fine, reset. However, I don't like this reset here. I want them to be able to change that to a blank without having to do reset. I just think that looks really untidy. So let's just close that down. So the way that we're going to do that is we need to change our approach on this items property. Yeah. So I'm just going to take that. In fact, no, I'm just going to go to my apps here and I'm going to create a collection. So let's go. So on select, I'm going to do that drop down. So here in my cross-reference variables, let's just do a new one. So I'm going to do clear collect, and I'm going to call this my collection xfer prog choices. Yeah. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a value in there. So value colon, and I'm just going to do double quote. I want it to be blank, and then I'm going to close that curly bracket, and then I'm going to close the bracket on the clear collection, and then I'm going to do a semicolon. So now that I've done that, I'm going to collect. Yeah, so collect, I'm going to append. So I'm going to append it to that col xfer prog choices. And what I'm going to collect is going to be the choices from the cross-reference dot program. Yeah. So let's close the bracket on the choices, and let's close the bracket on the collect, and then I'm going to do colon. Let's just format text there. In fact, no, I don't want to format the text there. Let's just leave that as is. I'm going to run on start, and let's just check that variable now. So there's my choices. Let's view the table, and there you go. So I've now got a blank row there. Wonderful. So if I then go, let's just close that down, and let's go back to my tree view. Let's go back to the xfer, and let's go to my search button, which is my DRP search. Let's go back to this. Let's go back to here. So there it is on the main screen here, and I want to change the items to be a collection. So let's just change that to my collection xfer prog choices. Let's look at what that does, and there you go. I've got them all there. Wonderful. Right. So let's just shrink that down. Let's do a save and do play. So the drop down. We've got numbers here. Now, If you're using the classic drop down, then you would probably say this would actually work. But there's one thing we need to do with our modern control for the drop down, which is there's a field value in the property. So if I just close that down, and on this drop down expert here, this, and I go over to the properties over here, you can see there's this fields bit. I need to tell it what to display in those choices. So if I do edit and do add field, and there's the ID and the value, I'm going to select the value, do add, and I'm going to close that down. And then if I then I'm going to hit save and do play, I do the drop down, I've now got a blank. So I can select F, I can select one of the programs. I can select I can also select a blank there, and I don't need the reset. And there you go. So I'm going to pause it there, and again, hopefully you're following along, and we'll continue to replicate the resource capacity planning template that I created in Excel in PowerApps. I hope you found this informative, and if so, please remember to click that like, subscribe, and smash that notifications button for future content. And as always, I wish you an absolutely wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Please take care, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video from Change, Tips and Tools. Bye bye now.